What is up, Big 12 Nation? Hello. It is time once again for another installment of The Biggest 12. I, of course, am your host, Clint Foster. Thank you so much for being here with me. We're going to have a great show for you today. I am joined by none other than Big 12 Mafia himself, Nathan Bomber Brown. Nathan, how you doing, my friend? Good to see you.
It's good to see you too, Clint. Boy, you're all shiny, have this new interface. Yeah, boy, you've done a step up. You're way above me.
What can I say, man? I'm part of the voice of College Football Network. Thank you so
I
much.
I think that's great. I love the voice of college football, so I think that's
Yes.
fantastic.
Yes. Well, we'll of course get to a preview for the week in short order, but we've come to it at last. The long-awaited Mountain West reunion
Right.
between my TCU Horned Frogs, your BYU Cougars. What are your initial thoughts going in?
I think these teams are pretty even. If you look at the stats, if you look at the way they've played ball, there's a little more ball control on TCU's side. But yeah, I think these teams are fairly even. And at the end of the day, it's going to be which one makes the least amount of errors. That's been like the tail of the Big 12 this year?
Yes, definitely true. Hey, y'all, thank you so much for joining us. Please subscribe if you haven't already at Big 12 VOCFB. Every subscriber helps. We really appreciate you. Thank you so much for tuning in. And, of course, subscribe to Big 12 Mafia as well and to my channel if you haven't already at Clint Foster Comedy. So we'll get straight into it. A lot to recap of the week that just was. I guess we should spend a little bit of time talking about that Red River rivalry game. That was the most drunk game on television there for a while.
Well, the first half looked like a blowout, right? The first half looked like they were just going to run away with it, and then Texas woke up. I picked OU. I picked OU in the preseason, so for me, I felt kind of justified and redeemed. At the end of the day, I think Sarkisian is a fantastic coordinator. Him as the head coach, I just don't. He's going to struggle in the SEC, I think.
Texas has just such endemic problems. I mean, cultural problems. But yes, those of you who tuned in last week, you saw I made that pick. I said, hey, OU's going to win this game. I guarantee you they've thought about nothing but 49-0 for the last 365 days.
Exactly.
They came out with their hair on fire.
Yes, they did.
They absolutely did. So we don't need to talk about those two teams any more than that, other than the fact that it was a great game. I certainly enjoyed watching it. I enjoyed being right, as I, so often am.
Right.
I have to tell you, Bummer, I've been in a absolute, with the exception of that Texas loss, it was basically football hell for me this past weekend between the Frogs, the Cowboys, and my fantasy team, which managed to score 100 points and still lose by 60. So
wow.
And that was my fourth loss in a row.
Oh, so, my goodness. That's why I don't do fantasy or picking. I pick games. I think we picked 8 games last week, and I went 2-6. So don't look at me for picking games either.
It's fun to at least, throw something out there. Like, hey, we'll try this. So, okay, Here's one that I've been excited to talk about. Forget about the Red River rivalry. Holy mackerel. Oklahoma State.
Wow, isn't that true?
Where did that come from, man? We had this program dead to rights here on the Biggest 12. And, I mean, that was a sound victory at home over Kansas State. I mean, what the heck happened?
Mike Gundy back against the wall. He's done this before. This isn't the first team that's been in the crapper, and he's done something to get them energized and back. I kind of hope they would stay down because I want BYU to beat them at the end of the year, but they looked good on Saturday night.
Okay, here, let's see. Do we have our first OSU Cowboy in the chat? Oklahoma State avenged their shutout losses from last season. Yeah, they absolutely did. Let me tell you what. And yeah, I mean, you said it, Bomber. It's Mike Gundy with his back against the wall. We were all saying, we've been saying on the show for weeks, talking about Dana Holgerson's on the hot seat, and you might need to start having some conversations about Mike Gundy. I think he just bought himself at least a little more time now. Kansas State, they look almost as much of a mess as we do right now. I mean, they are having problems. We, of course, being Frogs.
Right.
But man alive, 29-21. That was a game that I believe Kansas State was favored by 12, if I remember right. It was definitely double digits. But Oklahoma State coming out and, Alan Bowman doing his thing. I mean, 235 yards and no touchdowns, but good enough to win.
I think what was good about that game is they were in their black unis and they looked sick.
Yes,
That's all I got to say. Those uniforms in that stadium that's all orange and black was fantastic. It reminded me of Oregon State, those two schools. I would love Oregon State in the Big 12 because I'd love an OSU annual. That would be fantastic.
Yeah, how fun would that be? But yes, Oklahoma State, they do black uniforms just about as good as anybody. I've always loved Oklahoma State's black uniforms are all black uniforms, although I think we might need to fire our black helmets into the sun after the last 4 times that we've worn them. Right. Two of the best. And Texas Tech, of course. You got to give Texas Tech some love for their black uniforms.
Yep.
And it's worth mentioning now, Texas Tech, doing things right, doing what they're supposed to do in the Butt Bowl down there in the toilet on the Brazos. Beating Baylor 39-14. Very solid showing by Texas Tech. Again, what they're supposed to do. It's like what Coach P always used to say. You do what you're supposed to do in the games you're supposed to win. The big games take care of themselves. Is that a situation that's playing out here with Texas Tech, or is this just you get them where you can get them?
No, I think we're finding out that Wyoming was much better than anybody thought. And so they that was a tough loss, obviously, but it's tough to win in Laramie. Just ask BYU, and I understand how that game went.
Ask TCU, man. It happened in 07.
I know, you remember. Nobody wants to go to Laramie for vacation. Nobody wants to go up there for anything except for to drive through. Maybe it's just skirt town, but it's not a place anybody wants to go and do anything in. And they got bushwhacked. I think they're just like Oklahoma State. I think they're turning a corner. I think they'll have a better second half of the season than they have the first.
Yeah, you're talking about Wyoming. They took down Fresno State. A lot of people didn't see this probably. Fresno State ranked 24th, losing 24-19 to a now 5-1 Wyoming Cowboys team. Go Pokes, man. That though, hey, I will say this. That Wyoming stadium is a very cool and unique atmosphere. I was up there, let's see, what would that have been? My junior year, I believe. At TCU, I think it was my junior year. There was like
how much beer did they pour on you? That's all I want to know.
Well, I was an equipment manager at the time, so
I know. And beer comes down on you. You get urine thrown down on you. You get batteries thrown. It's not a place anybody wants to go play, especially night games.
Sure, but it's a unique atmosphere, is what I'm saying.
Sure, it's unique. It's like going and playing at a local penitentiary. There's no difference.
No love lost.
I have no love. They used to hurt BYU players all the time on purpose. Them in Utah State, I hope we never see again.
Yeah, so. Hey, I mean, people could say that about both of our teams, though, too. Y'all.
Oh, sure, absolutely.
Y'all are famously wiener twisters in the pile, famously.
Yeah, I don't know. We're gonna have to talk about that because there's been accusations from West Virginia about TCU players hurting them.
Yeah,
I don't know anything about that. This is new to me. Is that something?
You know what? I have not seen us do, and I mean, sure, you can say it's purple colored glasses. I haven't seen us have a single dirty play except for this last game against Iowa State, which we'll talk about here in a second.
Right.
There in the fourth quarter, we had one of our defensive linemen stomp on a guy's face. And I was like, come get him the hell out of there. We don't need any of that nonsense. But usually it's just football play stuff that people are like, no, our quarterback was injured and it was intentional.
Right. Okay. I don't know anything about it. I saw the reports, and so.
Yeah, I mean, now, hey, I'm not at practice every day these days. I don't know what guys are being coached to do or not to do. Right. I can tell you, the week after we had Mountaineer Paul on the show, he was messaging me like, oh, man, that team's so dirty. He's like, I'm sorry to say it to you, Clint. He's like, but that's just a dirty team. And I'm like, well, okay. But,
okay.
To each their own.
Right.
So let's go ahead. Let's rip the Band-Aid off. Let's talk about that travesty of a TCU game, if you want to even call it a game. My good grief. Playing against Iowa in their flesh-colored pants. The fighting Winnie the Poohs down there.
They probably have the worst. They're the ugliest uniforms in the Big 12, I think.
I mean, I appreciate the idea behind the uniform. I think the idea is very cool, but the execution on TV where it literally looks like the dudes are running around pantsless, it's just not the best. Those helmets were elite. I loved those helmets that said Ames on them.
Right.
And, I'm all for honoring Jack Trice. That's a great American right there. But the pants, it really made me rethink. I used to always say, man, I wish someday that TCU would do 1938 throwbacks. That was our last national championship season.
Okay.
And we wore khaki pants similar to Iowa State back then in those days. Okay. Now seeing those things live, I'm like,
Maybe
yeah,
not.
I don't think I want that anymore. Thanks for the field test. I was
sure. Maybe pick something from the 50s. You know, the 50s, like Art Deco, is pretty good. So
yes, right. Well, hey, shoot, if TCU ever wore the flying T, people would go nuts. People would be
right.
rabid if we came out in a flying T helmet.
UCF
Yeah,
has some ugly uniforms too. Every once in a while, they use that. I'm just
yes.
like, what are you doing with that crazy not Hypnotoad, but the Citronaut or whatever it is that they
Citronaut,
do.
yes.
Yeah, I don't even know what that is. I can't figure that. You can tell the school's only been playing football since '96. So
Yeah, it's like the Martian from the Flintstones.
a
But
little bit, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
I hope they never use that again. I like their other ones, their regular UCF ones,
Mm.
especially in the darker colors. They look good.
Yeah. Wet Blanket is 100% right. Iowa State is a tough place to win. Shoot, we haven't done it since 2015. Can you believe that? We have not beaten Iowa State in Ames since 2015, and that streak continued. Man, TCU has problems, and
Yeah.
almost all of them are on offense. Questionable play calls at questionable times. Chandler is 15 miles inside of his own head. Chandler Morris. I mean,
Because he's supposed to be really good. Was he a 4-star come in?
he was a 4-star.
Yeah, that's what I
to
thought.
Oklahoma initially out of Highland
Right.
Park. Transfers to us. Of course, somehow beats Max Duggan in fall camp
Right.
last year.
Right.
We saw how that turned out. He has now again sprained his MCL. They're
Oh,
saying he's
wow.
going to be out 4 to 6 weeks, so minimum a month.
Oh, wow.
And
That sucks.
it's now Josh Hoover's team. And
Okay.
I'm going to be very interested. Josh Hoover, so far, both games he's appeared in, his first play was a fumbled handoff, and he's also thrown an interception in each game. But he kind of settled in there at the end of Iowa State. He appears to be more accurate downfield than Chandler. He's
Okay.
certainly not as mobile as Chandler, but maybe a guy more in that Casey Paha mold, who's a guy who has good pocket presence and can throw the ball downfield.
Right.
He seems like he's a little bit bigger guy too, kind of like Casey was. You remember Casey Paha, right?
I
Bob?
do. Yes.
Yeah, surely you do. I mean, now fewer tattoos, Josh, you remind you.
Yeah, no, that was a while ago, but yeah, I do remember.
Yes. Yeah. But yeah, I'm going to be very interested to see what happens. And we'll talk about this a little more. Once he's had a full week in the offense with the first team, he can come in with a little bit of confidence and say, okay, this is my team. And, I'm going to be very interested. I'm still very trepidatious. I'm very hesitant going into this BYU game, but I'm going to be interested to see how he performs in the slightly different circumstances. Maybe we've got another Max on our hands.
How have you guys been with turnovers and like those plays that are 50-50?
Oh, man. It's so all of the good bounces that we had last year and the fortunate things that happened to us.
Not getting them this year.
No, we spent all our good luck last year. Not a lot. I mean, now there's a lot of boneheaded plays. I mean, we've got one of the worst red zone offenses I think I've ever seen. We move the ball amazingly between the 20s. We get down to the red zone and the offense just dies.
Right.
And it's usually because we're throwing an interception, to be honest with you. So maybe, maybe that's the thing. Maybe like with Chandler out, Josh Hoover in, he's playing a little more free. I think Chandler's put a lot of pressure on himself because he's trying to live up to this idea that people have of him.
Right.
Or that he has of himself. He's trying to prove that, like, hey, last year we still would have had just as good of a year if it would have been me, all that type of stuff.
Right.
I mean, his career game was in 2021 coming in as a redshirt freshman against Baylor. He played out of his mind. We've not seen that again. And I think it's because in that Baylor game, which the first game without Coach Patterson, we had absolutely no right to win. Baylor, for all intents and purposes, could have been a playoff team that year. But Chandler plays free. He plays out of his mind. He has fun. He does amazing. Ever since then, he's been inside his own head. He's been worried about getting hurt, or he's been worried about, he's been pressing, trying to force balls he shouldn't. It's that whenever you were playing Madden or NCAA football when you were a kid and you're like, no, I shouldn't be down by 2 touchdowns. I'm going to force this in there,
Right.
That's what I think we're seeing play out. But we'll talk more about that when we get to BYU. Let's catch up on some of these. Somebody's parked at Duggan's High School right now. Wow, that's amazing. Good for you. Hopefully some of that leadership and Heisman runner-up ability runs up.
Don't drink and drive. Don't drink and drive.
Don't do that. Excited about the Mountain West Conference reunion between TCU and BYU. Absolutely, man. This is, for those of us who, were fans back in those days, this is a fun blast from the past because those BYU TCU games were always almost always intense. you knew it was going to be a physical game, and it was going to come down right to the wire in a lot of cases.
Right. And in most cases, they were for the championship. It was us two in Utah. There was nobody else, and they were literal brawls. And yet, at the end of the games, I don't recall coming out of those thinking, "Wow, this is a school that I hate or is mean," or it was total respect and
not like Utah.
Yeah. Utah's a different deal though. That's like blood brothers. It's a whole. Yeah.
Well, I can speak for myself. I hated Utah. I hated Utah.
They're easy to hate. Yeah. They're easy to hate. That's all I got to say. Yeah. I mean, you've seen that over the last year. They've put a target on there. Wild Ute, we talk about it weekly about, he's a great representative for the school and the way they do things. But honestly, the way that they've run their program the last probably 2 years has been so extreme, everything on the edges, that it draws a lot of criticism. So
how hilarious though is it that it's their fault that they gave that bad valuation to the Pac-12, being like, oh, we should be able to ask for $50 million.
I think it's spot on. Yeah. I was not surprised at all. Their behavior dictated that. They have an attitude that they are USC. They are Stanford. They do believe up on the hill there in Salt Lake that they are, a top 10 university in the country, especially when it comes to the athletics. And their brain is here, and they're still growing and getting better. They're gaining respect. But the thing is you lash out and do other stupid stuff, and then people look at you and go, wait a second, you're kind of a pretender. How long have you been up here? You've won two conference championships back to back, but couldn't win the bowl game. Even when the teams that came in were all injured and banged up. I mean, they got all kinds of problems up there, but their introspection, their ability to, it's just really, I don't know. I love a bunch of Utah guys talking to them. I respect them. I really question the way that their school runs things.
Yeah, no, I mean, every school is going to have its goobers, and they're going to have, Wild Utes, like you said, wonderful dude. I had another friend in LA who was a Utah grad. Great, wonderful person. Every school's got their goobers and they've got their great people. But yeah, right. the way that athletic department is run, yes, is very obnoxious and arrogant and frustrating to share an atmosphere with. But I'm excited to have the Holy War back. I'm excited to see that again. Y'all may not be excited. I'm excited about it. And
no, are you kidding me? People around here are fantastically looking forward to it. In fact, the fact that we had a bye week before this game just has let 2 weeks of energy build up. It's going to be amazing. And don't be surprised if you guys don't buy your tickets. There's going to be a lot of blue and white in that stadium.
Oh yeah. So there's a reason. So this is something that Jeremiah Donati started doing. I want to talk about this, and then we'll finally get to Kansas here in a second. But we did this specifically for Texas Tech because there's so many Tech fans that live in DFW. Right. None of them want to live in Lubbock, obviously. So they did a thing. They started doing a thing last year to prevent just Tech fans from overflowing the stadium of like, hey, if you want to come to the TCU Tech game, you have to buy it as part of a package,
right?
These other 3 games. So it's like we're trying to sell specifically to TCU fans or people who are going to root for TCU. I know that BYU this year got included in that package because hey, Bomber, wherever BYU goes, there could be Mormons coming out of the woodwork to watch the Cougs.
We grow under the floorboards. We're all over the place. It's true. Except I gotta tell you, might not know this, but on Saturday they waived that. They opened up the tickets to everybody because nobody was buying them. I guess TCU people were selling them, and so
that makes sense.
I would just, are you going to the game?
Oh yeah, I'll be there.
Okay, so you'll have to report back. I won't. I can't afford to do these trips yet. But you'll let me know. Send me a text and let me know because the TV shows one thing. I'd be interested to see how many BYU people are there.
I'm sure there'll be a lot. Now I don't recall from the early 2000s games when I was in high school. I don't recall there being a lot of BYU people there. And then for the final 2 conference games, I was in college, and the game at Cowboy Stadium my junior year, I do remember a fairly good number of BYU fans. It wasn't like we packed out Cowboy Stadium, but there was half the stadium was BYU fans of probably the lower 2 decks. But yeah, I will be interested to see how many folks show up on Saturday.
I think it'll be a great game, Clint.
I do too.
I do. These teams are matched evenly. Defenses are both playing really well.
Yes.
It's all hawk, and it's just the team that does the one stupid thing. It might be the last possession on a fumble, something silly like that. But I think that's what it's going to come down, like 31-27, something like that.
Oh, you think that many points?
I do. I think they're going to get some. Yeah.
I'm like, man, if we score 27 points, I might be dancing naked in the streets. Jesus Louise.
Well, I think BYU has averaged over 31 points or 30.5. Yeah. So
yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about this Kansas UCF game. I
love Kansas, by the way. Kansas, all kinds of respect.
Yeah, that is a great program that Lance Leipold has down there. Very great. With or without Jalen Daniels, man, they are playing great football. And I very stupidly last week was like, hey, this could be it. This could be the first win over a legacy team for one of the new 4 members. Right. I think UCF, they got John Rice Plumlee again. I think they can go into Lawrence. I think they can win. Nope. Not even close, man.
Yeah.
51-22, Kansas ends up being triumphant. And man, it really makes you start to wonder, when is that first win going to come? I mean, BYU's got a really good shot this weekend, but it's been a rough go for these new 4 teams.
I don't think that's a surprise to anybody. It shouldn't be. I think BYU's in the best position to be successful right out the gate. You had a lot of noise coming out of these other schools, but honestly, let's talk about who's actually been playing up to the biggest schedules over the last 40 years, right? Nobody can argue BYU hasn't. So at the end of the day, these other schools, they just need to, and this is just a recommendation from somebody who is new to the league as well, is quit talking. Just go out and do your recruiting. Do the best you can. Quit hyping yourselves up and just build. That's how TCU did it. That's how Utah's done it. That's Baylor has done that. There's programs that had just said, we're going to start here wherever we are, and we're just going to build up and just be patient. The projections that UCF was going to be 8-4 this year, and there were a ton of them. There were a ton of analysts out there saying UCF has the easiest schedule. They could go 8-4. Was insanity. Absolute insanity.
Yeah.
And Kansas, I had Kansas and Oklahoma as the championship game at the beginning of the year. I think Kansas can win out. They're very, very good.
Yeah, they really could. They really could. Anything to keep it from being Texas, Oklahoma.
Yeah, not
keep
the
Texas
truth.
out. Just don't let Texas in. If Oklahoma's got to be in, that's fine. Just don't let Texas in.
Well, if Taysom Hill runs in the flag for BYU at Austin, BYU might beat Texas there. They're 4-1 against them all time. And then when you get Oklahoma at home in November, and if that's a night game, forget about it. Bet the house BYU wins that game. So
that would be delicious. I would love to see that happen. So Jackson's got a great question here. Jackson's got a great question here. Do you guys think UCF made a bad move by giving Malzahn the contract extension, or does he get a vote of confidence? What do you think, Bomber?
I think it was a big mistake.
Yeah,
I wouldn't have re-upped him. I would have made him do this sort of play to get type of a contract and earn it. Gus Malzahn, he was at Auburn. He was fantastic, had those problems, and he hasn't been the same. And I don't care who the quarterback is at UCF. It's the coaching. There's some of the decisions. If you watch that Kansas game in detail, there were a bunch of play calls that were just like, what the hell is going? You're running a flanker, screen or something, and it's 3rd and 15, and you're on the 30. It just doesn't make any sense, a lot of the play calls. So I think I do think it's a mistake.
I mean, I will defer to you on that then, because I haven't watched UCF in very close detail at all this season. I mean, from a complete outsider's perspective, my thought is like, well, yeah, why not ride with him? Because he's still recruiting at a high level. You're going to struggle your first year in the Big 12.
Right. That's true. That's true.
Yeah. So, I don't think that you put too much stock into what the final record is this year. My other question is, if you're UCF, I mean, is there somebody immediately better that you feel like you can go and get? I mean, again, I haven't watched UCF very closely this year.
Right.
I can't speak to any of the bad play calls or anything like that. But from a complete outsider's perspective, I don't hate the move. Doesn't mean it's the right move, but
I think it was an emotional reaction to re-up him right after that Baylor game.
Yes,
it was emotional. People were in high, lather. And there was a decision that, hey, we don't want something to, just because they lost this, we don't want to lose what we got going. And he has recruited well. I said in the preseason that I thought he might be gone. Not this year, but next year, just because like I said, he was great at Auburn. I haven't seen much since then. That's all I'm judging that on.
Yeah. Jackson here saying Jamie Chadwell could be a good option for UCF. Oh. What do you think about that?
I don't know who he is.
I don't know. I was like, hopefully Palmer knows.
That would be great. Yeah, he might be awesome. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, a fellow Clint. What's up, Clint Moses? UCF has a Lazy River upgrade coming soon. That's all you need to know. Hey, sign me up. Oh my God.
Lazy River. What is in that south end zone? You score a touchdown, you get to dive into the Lazy River.
That's what we need, man. We need more stadiums with lazy rivers.
We do.
And,
what the heck?
Get some bar service. You can get yourself some Pepsi in Provo at the Lazy River.
Absolutely. You know? It's actually Coke now, but
okay. Diet Coke at the Lazy River. Hey,
that's changed since you were here last. It was the Coke free or whatever. Now it's the full-blooded, whole hog, caffeine-filled Coke. So
wow!
Yeah, come and get high
out there.
It'll be fun. He says Jackson says it's the Liberty head coach. If he's the coach that's been at Liberty the last 3 years, I would steal him.
Yeah.
Because they have played really, really well the last 3 years.
Yeah. The fighting Jerry Falwell Juniors over there.
They beat BYU last year and looked really good. So
yeah, they sure did. All right, let's talk about the week ahead. We're
okay.
Perfect timing, 30 minutes in. Let's start with the Dana Holgorsen Bowl. All right, we're going to start Thursday night. Okay. West Virginia versus Houston on a Thursday night. It is in Houston.
Oh, geez.
So Holgo's got the Mountaineers coming to his house. West Virginia is a current 3-point favorite. Only 3 points.
That's crazy. That is crazy.
I am hammering West Virginia on this one.
I would too.
Yeah, and to cover by a mile.
What's the over/under? Do you know?
So let me
like 43 or something.
Let me see if I can find it. The over/under on the scale. Let me see.
3 points. That's crazy.
Yeah, I can't believe that it's. I think the over/under is 51 and a half.
Oh, that's pretty high. I think Houston is by far the worst team.
Oh yeah, easily.
Big 12, and they might not win another game. So no, I don't think. I think West Virginia is going to beat them easy.
Yeah,
I don't know what the score is going to be, but.
I cannot believe, and I think that this has actually moved. I think that the opening line was 1 point. If I heard
that is insane. What are they looking at?
I'm like, have you watched West Virginia play?
I know they're playing fantastic ball. Yeah. I don't know what they barely lost to Penn State.
Yeah,
I don't know what. I don't know
what the only loss they have is to Penn State.
I don't know. This is why I don't bet sports, because I would lose my house on a bet like that. I would say absolutely West Virginia is going to win, and Houston goes out and puts out 75 points or something.
Oh yeah, that's how it goes for sure. But I mean, and hey, I wouldn't put it past Dana Holgorsen to have some. Godlike offensive performance. Finally.
Anything's possible.
Yeah.
Anything's possible.
Yeah. Hey, Jackson's absolutely right. Neil Brown has done a magnificent job with West Virginia this season. He has absolutely secured his job for at least another year. I mean, shoot, that's a game that TCU should have won. But even then, they controlled the line of scrimmage. They beat us up on both sides.
They really did own that game.
Yeah, literally everything that me and Paul talked about West Virginia had to do, and TCU, everything West Virginia had to do that we said they had to do, they did. Everything TCU had to do, they did. TCU did not do.
Right.
It was, they're 4-1 for a reason. I am trusting the climb, baby. Let's put West Virginia in the conference championship.
All right, let's do it, babe. BYU, they have to beat BYU yet. I still think they will beat BYU, but I think that might be a closer game than we thought.
Honestly, though, that BYU game is the first game on their schedule that they really even have to worry about. We talked about this on TCU week, how West Virginia's schedule lines up really nicely for them, because they had the bye week after us. Then they have Houston this week.
Right.
And after Houston, they host Oklahoma State. They go to UCF. I mean, that should be a 3-0 October.
Yeah.
So West Virginia, there is a very real world where West Virginia is hosting BYU in Morgantown, couches burning and everything.
Right.
Moonshine flowing. Sitting at 7-1. I mean, that's what TCU was thinking going into the BYU game. I was like, hey, we're going to be 7-1 going into this BYU game.
Right.
We're going to be 6-0 going into this BYU game, or 5-1.
Right.
Nope, not so fast. Not so fast. But now it's West Virginia. They're looking great. So we both agree, hammer the over on West Virginia.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, I'm thinking because they play ball control. Houston's offense hasn't looked good anyway. That is the furthest thing from a hostile environment down there in Houston. I can tell you from being at the first Big 12 game in their history, the upper deck wasn't even half full. I think it's going to be West Virginia. You know what? West Virginia 31 to 15.
Yeah, 17 is what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Something like that.
I just like dumb scores. That's what.
Yeah, no, I think it's fair. That's fair. A couple field goals and
a
couple touchdowns.
We'll hold the vaunted Mountain West reunion until last. We'll save the best for last.
Okay, all right, good.
So let's jump back over to Iowa State. Iowa State going to Cincinnati, the land of skyline chili. Iowa State, of course, flying high after their thrashing of my TCU Horned Frogs.
Right.
Cincinnati is favored in this game. 4.5 point favorites. In fact, they're the only new member of the Big 12 this week that is favored in that game. Could this be a moment where Cincinnati notches their first win against it'd be their first Big 12 win at all, and also their first win against a legacy Big 12 member?
That was a fight that we had with them here. Cincinnati's a much better team than people might think. I watched the Oklahoma game. They were respectable. They didn't embarrass themselves in that game.
Yeah,
they have a good defensive line, and I think they just made a couple of really stupid mental errors that made the game a little wider than it should have been. So 4.5, you said? That's still a pretty high number.
4.5 point favorites. Yeah.
If I was to bet the line, I'd probably take Iowa, but just to win out, I would take Cincinnati.
You think Cincinnati wins?
I think they can win it. Yeah, I think they can.
I mean, Iowa State's not a great team. I mean, literally,
they got flaws just like everybody else does, though.
Yeah, if I have ever seen a game where a team just lost more so than got beat, it was that TCU Iowa State game. I mean, we lost that game.
Right.
4 interceptions, and they were all stupid interceptions. And even after 2 interceptions and a turnover on downs on our first 3 drives, it still took that long, and the defense being on the field that long before Iowa State even goes up 7-0. I mean, that was the most winnable of winnable games. So, yeah, I think you're right. I think, the title of the show this week, first win for a new 4, I think that this is the first one. I think Cincinnati, and also, regardless of if BYU wins or not, this is the 11 a.m. game.
Sure.
So I think Cincinnati, they get over that hump. They're the first of the new members to beat a legacy team.
There we go.
Doing it at home at Nippert Stadium there by the river, right? Picturesque moment. Fire up your Skyline chili. Get excited.
All right.
I think it's a low-scoring game. I think it's I think you're right. Iowa State covers. So, give me 17-14.
Yeah, I don't think there's going to be a lot of points. Yeah, 21-17, something like that. Yeah.
All right, there we go. So, on over to the Sooner States. We'll talk about Oklahoma State a little bit. We got Oklahoma State and Kansas. Yeah, hold up both hats. All right.
And they're at Kansas?
It is in Stillwater. Ooh. Kansas, still ranked, number 23 Kansas, is a 3-point favorite in Stillwater.
Oh, brother.
Yeah, this is tough.
Boy, this might be the toughest pick of the week for me. Bean played so well last week, and I thought if Jalen Daniels I picked against Kansas and went against my better judgment because I thought Jalen Daniels wasn't going to play, and then they'd be bad. Bean comes out and scores 51 or whatever. Yeah. So Oklahoma State looked good.
They did.
And is it a night game or a day game?
It's afternoon game. It's at the exact same time.
Okay, I'm going to take Kansas then.
Yeah, I think you're right. I'm picking Kansas in this one. Kansas is just too good.
They're a very good team.
Oklahoma State played out of their mind against Kansas State, a team that is struggling.
Yes.
And I think that's going to be tough for them to replicate 2 weeks in a row. Kansas is strong on both sides of the ball, man. It's 2007 all over again.
Right.
It really is 2007. It really is. Nobody's actually any good in the entire country. TCU is struggling to a disappointing season when we thought it was going to be a lot better. Right. We're playing BYU. It's 2007, right? Yep. Kansas is amazing, right? So I think Kansas wins. I think they cover 3 points, man. Stillwater's a tough freaking place to win in.
It is.
I think Kansas can cover that. I still think it's about a 1-score game.
Is If it was at night, I would take Oklahoma State.
Yes, correct. Yeah, if it was at night,
Yeah.
definitely take Oklahoma State with the paddles and all that business.
Exactly.
I think this one's a little more on the high-scoring side. I think I'm going to go, 35-28 Kansas. That's what I'm kind of thinking.
Yeah, 38-28. I think they're going to be more than 10 points during the day.
All right, now we got an Oklahoma State fan in the comments. Let's see what he's thinking about it. After Oklahoma State's win versus Kansas State, Cowboys have pulled off the upset in 8 of their last 9 games as a home underdog under Mike Gundy. Now, that is a stat.
Yes, it is. And Wet Blanket knows his stuff, too. So I hate to pick against him. So I apologize, Wet Blanket, if I'm making you upset. I'm just going by my experience playing Kansas. They're a much better team than anybody thinks.
He's saying Cowboys by 10. Hey, I love the enthusiasm, man. I could see a world where it happens. But sure. I think two upsets in a row. I mean, with this Oklahoma State team, you gotta be honest with yourself. I mean, this is not one of Gundy's best.
Right.
It's got some serious flaws. This is a bottom half of the conference team, and Kansas is very much a top, not only top half of the conference, top third of the conference team. I think you wouldn't get any argument at all from me if you said this is the third best team in the conference right now. Any argument at all?
Oh, you're talking about Kansas now? You're talking about Kansas?
Yeah, Kansas.
I would put them third right now.
Yeah.
West Virginia 4th, BYU 5th, TCU 6th.
Well, hey, based on the way things have looked, I mean, you can go ahead and move TCU way further down that list.
I don't think so.
We have regressed every single week.
Yeah.
Like, we had 1 yard of offense in the third quarter against West Virginia. Like, we have struggled.
Yeah, but West Virginia's defense is playing lights out.
I mean, yeah, they are. They are
very, very well.
All right, we got one more game before we get to the one that we're all waiting for.
Okay.
First, though, Kansas State goes to Lubbock. Holy mackerel. Going to Lubbock. This is the night game, and not a fun time to – this is my Rangers hat.
That's all right.
Kansas State. There they are. Okay,
right.
So Kansas State playing a night game in Lubbock. That is not an easy thing to do.
No.
Weird, wild stuff. You want to talk about throwing batteries and pouring beer on you.
Right.
Okay? That's a wild place to play in Lubbock, especially at night. If a fox gets loose on the field, forget about it. Okay. We're going south. So Kansas State. Okay, actually, Texas Tech is a 1-point favorite in this game.
Right.
All right. That feels very on the nose to me, honestly. I think Vegas has never been more correct than that. I think Texas Tech does win a wild one. Kansas State trying to get off the schneid, but tough to do it in Lubbock and coming off of an emotional high. They're feeling good about themselves. They got some confidence after taking it to Baylor.
Right.
I'm picking Texas Tech.
I agree with that. And I think it's more than one, but it could be like a 39-35 type thing.
Yeah.
It could be an old school Big 12 score 'em up game is what it could be.
Yeah, I think you're right on the money there, Bomer. I think it's it's in the 30s. I mean, I really like that 1 point.
It's close. I agree with you.
Give me like 36-35, right? Something wild. Texas Tech gets way too hyped up to beat a terrible Kansas State team. And there you go.
Kansas State, boy, talk about regression.
Yeah, man.
What has gone on there? I'm a little confused, to be honest.
Well, here's the thing. I talked about this a little bit in the offseason. I didn't have my show yet, but
right.
I was talking with some friends about it. Like, yes, at the time I was like, I think Will Howard may be the best quarterback in the Big 12. I said this at the time. That was not correct.
No.
But I was like, but still, he's like, who's he throwing the ball to? Who's running the ball? Like, he's lost literally all of his weapons that were so good from the previous year. So, shoot, take it from a TCU fan. It's tough to replace a whole bunch of NFL talent that just suddenly leaves your offense,
Yeah, you're right. That's true.
Yeah, so and Kansas State they're feeling that right now. Will Howard is struggling, and I mean, you lose to Oklahoma State, it's kind of like losing to Iowa State. Imagine doing something that stupid, man. Can you even believe? Okay, so the main event.
All right,
let's talk about it. Here it is, the reunion of Mountain West rivals. Right. I don't have a BYU hat, but I'm going to put my TCU hat back on because you're representing BYU.
Okay, that's good.
So, Frogs and Cougs. We've got it in Amon Carter Stadium, 2:30 in the afternoon. It's supposed to be beautiful weather. We've had some Gorgeous weather here. All of a sudden, it's been like in the 70s and 80s. Man, it's
Oh,
like
wow.
we might as well be at the threshold of heaven, man.
Wow, I
we've
like
been waiting
that.
for this for a long time. But it's going to be a great game day atmosphere. Hopefully, the Frogs still show out in droves. Hopefully, not too many people have, completely jumped off one of our many bridges over here and decided to end it all. But the Frogs are 5.5-point favorites in this game. Ooh, that doesn't feel good to me.
That's a lot of points.
It's a lot of points.
That's a lot of points.
I've talked myself into being not completely doomsday about this game. I mean, after that, about halfway through that Iowa State game, I was like, we're going to get absolutely murdered by BYU. I was like, we don't even stand a chance. This is the sky is falling. Everything is bad, but I still think we can win this game, but I don't think we win it comfortably by any stretch of the imagination. Give me your full and unabridged thoughts on the game, Bar.
This is my favorite game of the week. I've been looking forward to it all year, honestly. Outside of the Texas and Oklahoma games, this was the game that I wanted to see because I remembered those fun ones we had in the late 90s, early 2000s. So I think they're very matched up. If you look at the stats and you look at them one next to each other, right next to each other, time of possession is almost identical. Ball control is a little bit more in TCU's hand, but BYU scores a few more points. So it's going to be one of those things is what it really is going to be either the final possession or the special plays or the turnovers that'll dictate this game. I don't think it's broken out just by a team going out and lighting it up with four touchdowns in a quarter or anything like that. It'll come down to a muff punt, an interception untimely, a defensive stand on fourth down. BYU's had already 2 of those this year. So be very careful going forward on fourth down. You see 4th and 1 and it's on the 35 and you're thinking, oh, I don't know. Against BYU, that has been less than a 50-50 ball. So I would just say if TCU plays very conservative and they keep everything in front of them, they have the talent to beat BYU. There's no question about it. But if you play outside your normal paradigm, right? You reach or you do things, you try to extend more than you normally are. BYU will get you. We almost got Kansas, and ask Kansas how they came out of that and they had all kinds of respect from BYU after that game. They're like, oh, who are these guys? They're hanging around P5 forever and all this other stuff. After that game, they're like, whew, man, we're glad we got out of that game. And now we know how good Kansas is. You can tell BYU played them to basically one possession outside of a throwaway possession at the end of the game. So I would just say BYU can win it if they win on the edges, if they win those extra ball type situations. If TCU does just play conservative, though, they have the talent, especially on the back end on defense, to beat BYU.
Hopefully we would do that because I think Amani Bailey is the best running back in the Big 12. We're not very good at many things this year, but we're dang good at running the ball when we actually freaking do it. Okay, when Kendall Briles has the stones to actually stick to the running game. We are built to do that, and especially with Josh Hoover coming in, this is going to be his first start. He's undefeated as a starter, right? Hopefully we do go to that well, and we let Amani Bailey just run the ball, and play.
Right.
Because BYU has a good stinking team, man. There are still way too many people sleeping on BYU. I loved what I saw in that Arkansas game. Caden Slovis is slinging it. I had a lot of BYU. So I had the tweet about BYU is going to kill us. I'm going to have nightmares about nice young men ringing my doorbell. And I had a lot of BYU fans in the comments being like, oh, not so fast. And we're terrible at running the ball and our defense isn't that good. I'm like, what team are you watching? This is a very solid BYU team.
You're dealing with a university, though, that has had this syndrome since 81, right? It's been since 79 when Jim McMahon took first snaps as starter. You go out and you beat the people you're supposed to beat, and everybody questions the ones that you didn't beat because you didn't play. And so there's this syndrome that BYU fans have that doesn't matter how good we get, there's always everybody thinks that there's that iron sitting over their head that the sky's going to fall. So just being really conservative, really respecting the competition. That's all you're going to see out of us. If you're new to seeing me or to seeing BYU people, you're going to get nothing but respect from us. I don't care what school you are, because that's what we do. So I have nothing but respect for TCU, and I'm just keeping my fingers crossed that we get those extra balls or extra possessions. Because if we do, I do think we have the potential to score some points. Keaton Slovis is fantastic.
Yeah.
He'll get drafted in the first 5 rounds this next spring, and I'm just waking everybody up. The running game's waking up. So.
Yeah, I'm still not. I mean, I'm not going to pick us to lose because I'm nothing if not optimistic. I mean, why do you even do this thing if you can't be optimistic about your team?
Right, for your own team, of course. Yeah.
But I mean, we'll get to the score predictions in a second. But I'm not confident in this game at all. It's all for us. It's all going to hinge on Josh Hoover. What's he going to look like with a full week of practicing with the ones under his belt, without any jitters of like, oh my God, I'm getting thrown into the game, and like, now what do I do? You know, it's your team, man. He was only a 3-star recruit, but this is a guy who started for Rockwall Heath. This is a 6A program in Texas, and he had a lot of success at the 6A level. It doesn't get any bigger than that. Okay. So, and I will say too that I heard a rumor today from a friend of mine who's a former player who's still pretty well connected with the program. And he's like, you know what? I've heard that the guys love Josh. He's way more popular with the team than Chandler, and he's got a little bit more of that leadership quality. Okay. He's not quite on Max's level, but he's got a little bit more of that leadership, like psych the guys up, like let's go do something, than Chandler does. And I mean, again, I think there is no question that Chandler has been such a head case this entire season. Ever since the Colorado game, I think he's been a total head case. And it's tough to shake yourself out of that. So do we get a little bit of magic here? Does this start? I mean, I'm not ready to say this is going to start some fantastic run. I sure do hope it does. But I'm very anxious to see how Josh Hoover performs. I hate that there's such a shadow cast. I can't get like as excited about playing BYU as I was going into the season, because I'm like, oh my God, this could be terrible. But I'm going to be really interested to see it play out. Let's see some predictions from the comments, then we'll get ours. Tim, Bailey operates like a menace for real. Yes, he does. Okay, I saw your prediction back here. Okay, Timmy says TCU by 3 with how iffy and explosive both teams are. Okay. Don't hate it. If we win by 3, I'll take it. Clint Moses is saying BYU only for the Satake connection. Does Oregon State have a Kalani Sitake? Is that Oregon State that he is? Does they have a Kalani?
Yeah, he was the defensive coordinator there.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
He went from Utah. He went from BYU to Utah to Colorado to Oregon State to BYU. So.
All right, Mike. Mike here likes BYU. He likes Kansas. Okay, so that's another one for BYU. Jared just said purple. Great.
You know what that is? Yeah.
Love it. Okay. All right. I thought I had one more in here, but I guess that's all of them. Okay. I'll let you go first because I'm a gentleman, because you're the guest. Okay. What is your pick for the game? Give me a score prediction.
I think it's going to be a bit of a slugfest, and I think you're right. And I think probably, I don't know, 35-31. And I think BYU wins it. I do think BYU wins it at the very end.
Okay.
Did you see they scored with 44 seconds at the end of the first half against Cincinnati?
Yes, I did see that.
They did. It's like they flipped a switch, and all of a sudden they scored in 4 plays, and they can do that. They did it against Arkansas too. They did it against Kansas. So it's in them to do those things.
I definitely saw somebody on Twitter at that point being like, what if BYU just pretended like there was 40 seconds on the clock?
Well, maybe we should. Maybe we should. It's true.
Yeah, that looked very vintage BYU for sure.
Yeah, it definitely was.
Like airing it out and like, holy mackerel, they're just moving. Yeah. Okay, here's Mike's official prediction: BYU 32, TCU. Oh no!
Wow. Okay, I would love that. I just don't know if I see it.
It could happen, Bomber. That could happen. Really
anything could happen. It could be reversed. TCU could go 32 on 17. So
man, yeah. I don't see hey, if BYU scoring 30 points, we're losing this game. All right.
Okay.
I don't think our offense is in a place right now with Josh Hoover's first start. I mean, if we're going to have success, it's going to be mostly running the ball, I think. Now watch Josh Hoover drop a bunch of dimes deep down the field. He's more accurate downfield than Chandler is for sure. But right. I think if the defense is allowing that many points, I mean, we've got to rely on our defense right now. That's our strength. So I think I'm seeing a vintage TCU BYU game, a super physical game super grinded out game, thinking like 2008, thinking like 2005 actually got up there.
2005 was a fantastic game.
That was
one of the best college games I've ever seen.
Hey, and that was the birth of Jeff Ballard. That was another TCU backup quarterback U moment. So hey, man, you know, if BYU can create Jeff Ballard, maybe they can turn Josh Hoover into somebody.
Maybe anything's possible.
Let's cross our fingers. Okay, so yeah, I think it's going to be low scoring if the Frogs are going to win. Very physical game, hoping for a fun game. I'm thinking Frogs win. Okay, so this would be BYU would cover in this case. Frogs win 21-17.
Okay,
that's what I think.
All right.
I think that's our best case scenario.
If BYU only scores 17 points, they're definitely losing. I will give you that 100%.
Yeah,
Devil Frog. I see Devil Frog says down here, what's a name for BYU? I like the Revivalry. That's
already our game with Baylor. We call our game.
I don't really care about Baylor. I care about me. So that's what I like to call it.
There's got to be something religious, though.
Yeah, you call it whatever you want. I don't know.
Yeah, we do need to think about it. That's everyone's
it doesn't matter to me.
The Bible Bowl, maybe the sequel versus the trilogy, I guess.
Yeah, hey, look at you that's deep. Okay, that's a deep cut.
Yeah.
Most people did not catch that. That was very good, Clint.
New Testament versus the Golden Tablets Bowl.
You earn extra points for that. That was really, really good.
Yeah. Devil Frog liked it. Okay. Fun. I mean, I don't know. Hey, that's everybody's homework. But by the time we meet next week, let's have thought of a name for this game because it deserves one. You know,
I think so. I like it. But
were you around, by the way, Bomber? For you probably are too young for this, but whenever BYU and TCU played back in like '87, the Crickets were covering the field. Were you aware
of that game?
You were at that game. Okay.
Yeah, I'm old.
Recount the experience for those.
So they played a home and home. And I had never heard of a horned frog in my life, and I was 17 at the time. So here BYU had won a national championship 3 days before, or 3 years before, sorry. And so we're playing this horned frog. What in the hell is a horned frog? And so we were making all kinds of fun of it, right? And then TCU comes in. It's like, oh my gosh, what has happened here? That was
this is the Pokemon version.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we didn't know what it was. I can tell you that right now. And
we were still in the flying T back then.
Yeah, that was it. It was. Yeah. I didn't enjoy the game very much, to be honest with you. Locusts were taking over the state at the time, and so it wasn't a time to be outside. Right,
like a biblical plague of crickets.
It was bad. It was really bad, and I don't know why they're called Mormon crickets. It's a misnomer. They're actually anyway. But
I'm going to read you an excerpt from this is from the Deseret. Okay, Deseret.
Okay, Deseret News.
Recounting the game. It says the fact that TCU upset Brigham Young 33-12 in 1987 at Amon Carter Stadium is inconsequential to the aforementioned participants or those who were among the intimate crowd of 26,000 the night that millions of field crickets flew with kamikaze fervor into carefully crafted blue coffers, drowned themselves in icy soft drinks, or coated the artificial turf in a brown puree, casualties of a mating dance that ended up in the wrong place at the wrong time, like teenage Parkers caught in a lover's lane, inexplicably transformed into a freeway fraught with 18-wheelers. So there was literally cricket goo just all over.
It was disgusting, and we lost the game, and I don't even want to talk about it anymore.
Yeah, just like what a gross experience. Because that was 3 years before I was born.
Okay,
I had literally my entire family was at that game because my whole family's been going to TCU games since the 50s.
Right.
And yeah, they've definitely told me stories about that was the nastiest freaking experience.
It was really bad.
It's everywhere.
It was really bad. Gross. Hey, I gotta go, Clint.
Yeah.
I got a show. I'm going at the top of the hour. But
yes,
thanks for the show. Thanks for inviting me on. I appreciate this.
Yeah, thanks so much. We do need to wrap things up. Bomber, go ahead and plug your stuff before you leave.
Sure. So I'm at B12 Mafia on Twitter and also at the Holy Rivals on Twitter. And then I have 2 shows on YouTube, the Big 12 Mafia show and then the Holy Rivals show. Right now, I'm getting ready to start. I guess it's almost 8 Eastern. We're going to be running our, what do we call it? This is a name I didn't come up with. It is going to be Replay Tuesday, where we talk about how bad our picks were on Saturday. So that's kind of what we do on Tuesday. We're also going to talk to Jim Williams about this ACC news. I don't know if you saw that, but there's some more realignment stuff.
Oh, yes. Possible teams leaving, possibly Tulane.
Right.
Yeah, very exciting stuff. So, yes, y'all should definitely, absolutely hop straight over from here to Big 12 Mafia. You're not going to want to miss any of that stuff. Bomber, thank you so much for being here. I'll go ahead and let you go, and I'll
play
us out, get everything going.
I want to say bye to everybody that came over. Appreciate it. Thanks for being here, and definitely sign up for this show because Clint's a stud. So if you're not subscribing, you're losing it. We'll talk to you later. Okay,
yes,
bye-bye.
See you around, Bomber.
Okay, see ya.
Thank everyone so much for tuning in. This is, of course, the Biggest 12. Please do subscribe. It is at Big 12 VOCFB. That is at Big 12 VOCFB. Every subscriber helps, really helping us grow the show. Tell your friends about it. Man, put your Mormon hat on and evangelize the heck out of the show. Everyone needs to know about it. We want to grow this thing, turn this into we're turning it into a movement, okay? So please do subscribe to that. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, at Clint Foster Comedy. I mean, most of you are here because you watch my videos. I thank you so very much for that. Got a lot more coming. And whenever the Frogs have their bye week, I'll have something extra special spicy for you that I'll work up. Follow me on Twitter also, or X, whatever you want to call it, at Clint_Foster55. Again, thank you so very much for being here. This has been the Biggest 12. And with that, we will close the chapter on another week. So, all love to you and yours. I hope your team wins. Go Frogs. And I'll see you next Tuesday on the Biggest 12. Thanks so much, y'all.